Good day, everyone, and thank you for joining us in this episode of the Leadership Series by Lakeshore Human Capital. For those that don't know me, my name is Mandeep Burwal. I'm the founder and managing partner of Lakeshore Human Capital. We are a retained executive search firm based here in Toronto. We recruit at the senior executive level for our clients across both Canada and the US. Our guest today is Phil Gillin. Phil is the former executive vice president at Bentall Canada Limited Partnership, a member of Sun Life Group of Companies. Phil oversaw Canadian property investments for the general account of the Sun Life Financial Group of Companies, with responsibility for its $14 billion portfolio of Canadian commercial mortgages and real estate investments. Phil was also the portfolio manager for the Sun Life Canadian Commercial Mortgage Fund and the Bentall Kennedy High Yield Canadian Property Fund. In addition, Phil was the chair of Sun Life Financial's International Sustainability Council. Phil has over 40 years experience in the property investment sector. He joined Sun Life Assurance Company of Canada in 1998 as vice president of Canadian real estate, overseeing the growth and enhancing the management of the portfolio, and was appointed as senior managing director and head of Canadian real estate in 2007. Phil's responsibilities were expanded in 2012 to also include Canadian commercial mortgages. Prior to joining Sun Life Assurance Company, Phil managed the real estate asset at one of Canada's largest retailers, and prior to that, he was a senior executive at the Cadillac Fairview Corporation, one of North America's largest real estate companies. Phil speaks frequently on property investment topics and is very active in industry and community organizations. In 2020, Phil received the Real Estate Icon Award from the Commercial Real Estate Development Association, known as NAIOP, in recognition of his long career and contributions to the real estate industry. Phil holds a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Western Ontario and an MBA from the Schulich School of Business. He is also a certified public accountant. Welcome, Phil, and thank you for joining us today.
Morning, Mandeep. Thanks for that introduction. I couldn't have done a better job if I'd written it myself.
Wonderful. Well, listen, you've had a fantastic career, Phil, in real estate, and interesting enough, you and I have known each other for probably well over 15, close to 20 years now since I got into the recruitment business. I had no idea you were an accountant. Did you start off in an accounting firm, or did you go right into industry?
Yeah, not really. I when I went to business school, I did a lot of accounting and finance courses, and as a result, I pre-qualified for much of the course material for the CMA designation. So I just followed through and got that designation, but I've never practiced accounting in my life.
Got it.
Which most accountants who know me will attest to.
Yeah. So you've spent a long time in real estate. Have you spent your entire career in real estate, or did you have any roles before that?
Pretty much. I mean, I started actually. I studied computer science, as it was then known as an undergraduate. And my first job was working at Imperial Oil in the computer systems department. Mm-hmm. And found that very interesting, but I wanted different challenges. And I went to business school and focused on finance and accounting. And consequently, when I did my MBA, I moved on from Imperial to another role.
Got it. And what brought you to, or what, why did you decide to get into the real estate sector, and why real estate?
It was more by accident than design, really, Mandy. Mm-hmm. I was working at IBM. After I left Imperial, I went to IBM, and I was working in a finance role there. A great organization, and at that time, this was in the 70s, probably long before you were born. In the 70s, IBM was a huge global force. But it was like a great organization, but I didn't think it was the right role for me. And so I moved on. There was an opportunity at this company called Cadillac Fairview Corporation, which I knew very little about. They were looking for a financial analyst. And I was hired there as a financial analyst, working in the urban development group, which focused primarily on office and mixed-use properties. And at that time, I knew very little about the commercial real estate business. But as I got familiar with the organization and the business, I really thought this is a business I like, this is a business I understand, and this is a business that I want to stay in my career. So that's really what got me going in real estate.
Got it. Got it. And, obviously the people who I've worked with and know me, we do quite a bit of recruitment in the real estate sector. And, a lot of the roles we recruit and fill, if you do a senior finance search, that person has spent their entire career in finance. If we do a development search, most often than not, they've spent a good chunk of their career on the development side. How has your career evolved over the 40 plus years you were in the business? And what different functional areas did you have experience or exposure to within real estate?
I've had a varied career, I guess is the best way of putting it. I started as a financial analyst, kind of learned the fundamentals of real estate numbers and pro formas and that sort of stuff. Moved on to development after that in the 80s when there was a lot of development going on. Did some work in Canada, a little bit in the United States as well. But in the late 80s, development just kind of disappeared because there was a tremendous oversupply of new product in all the asset categories, which led to a kind of, there was no more development to do. So I moved from development into leasing. I was managing the leasing functions for both office and retail portfolios. But as the early 90s evolved, the real estate business went through a significant correction. And Cadillac Fairview became insolvent and was restructured. And at that time, I left the organization, which was a learning experience in itself. And I did some work consulting and stuff. It wasn't a lot of fun being an unemployed real estate guy in the middle of the 1990s because real estate was a dirty word in many banking circles and pension investment circles. So I did a number of different things in the late 1990s, but then joined a retail landlord and managed their retail portfolio of stores. And then from then I moved on to Sun Life. Sun Life, I went in as the portfolio manager in Canada for the Canadian real estate assets, and then worked on that portfolio, added mortgages to it subsequent to that. And then as Sun Life evolved, they bought Bentall Green Oak, or Bentall Kennedy as it was then known. And I got into portfolio management and product development. So I've had quite a varied career right across all the aspects of the disciplines of real estate.
Right. Wonderful. So over your career, I'm assuming you've seen a few different economic cycles within real estate. Is the one in the 90s that stands out as the most, or which one was probably particularly the most difficult, or the one that stood out the most in your mind, Bill?
It was definitely the 1990s. I've made the observation that real estate we've been in a bull market for real estate for the last 25 plus years, from the mid 1990s up to now. In a bull market, everybody looks like a genius because prices are going up, values are going up, rents are going up, cap rates are going down. I mean, people were making a lot of money. And I think many people thought it was because they were smarter than everybody else, but rather there was a lot of systemic forces that supported the good performance. Yeah. But that can change quickly. And in the 1980s in real estate were very similar to what we've seen over the last 10 years. Yeah. And in the 1990s, that all changed. And it was a very difficult period, but it was also one where you really learned a lot about the business and, how to make deals and move ahead in difficult times. And, I think those are lessons that stood with me for the balance of my career. And I think it's important that people learn that because, things don't always go up and values don't always go up. And there isn't always a lineup of people wanting to rent your space. Yeah. And I think as we move forward, we're going to see more of those challenges because I think the next 10 years in the real estate business are going to be much more challenging than the last 25. Yeah.
Interesting. And I'm assuming, over your career, Phil, you've hired or recruited many people, both from new grads to experienced hires. When you're hiring, young talent, people coming out of university, or maybe they only had 1 or 2 years worth of experience, what did you particularly look for in these young individuals when you were recruiting them to either Cadillac Fairview or to Sun Life?
I think the key thing that always impressed me was enthusiasm and energy. You know, that's a key element, I think, because you can tell from people early on in an interview whether they've got a real passion for the business or not. And I think it's very important that you do that and you recognize that.
Yeah.
I think from the point of view of communications as well, I think excellent verbal and written communication skills are very, very important. And I think you can get a sense for people whether they can articulate their vision and their background clearly. I think that's very important. And I think written communications are very important as well.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen PowerPoint presentations where it'd be impossible for anyone to cram any more stuff onto one page. There's charts and bars and verbiage and all the rest of it. And you can't really understand what the message is. And I think it's important for young people to be able to clearly articulate their view. The other thing I think I would advise younger people in the business is to kind of understand their boss and how their boss thinks, because he or she is going to be looking at their submissions and materials on the basis of how is this going to help me make this decision? And if you can kind of get a grasp of how the boss thinks, and I'm not saying to be a yes man and do stuff that is along that line, but rather to kind of think, how does he look at it, and how does the institution look at it, and what should I be thinking about in terms of trying to articulate my recommendation or my position or rationalization for the transaction. So those are the types of things that I think are important for young people to keep in mind.
Excellent. Is there any other advice you would give new entrants to the industry? You know, if someone comes to you for advice and says, listen, Phil, I really like real estate. This is the industry I've selected. I want to work in here, you know, and ultimately I want to be, you know, I want to run a company. I want to be or the chief investment officer or the chief financial officer. What would you tell them that they need to do in order to get to that point 10, 15, 20 years down the road?
There's a couple of things that I think are important. One of which is to try and learn as much as you can about the broadest range of skills in real estate and not be kind of one-dimensional and really focused on one particular area. Because if you want that job as a CIO or the CFO or the chief development guy, you need to have a broad understanding of how real estate works. And it's particularly important in the current, well, not current, but when you look at the participants in the real estate business, they're all large financial institutions, and it all comes down to the numbers. And if you don't understand the numbers, you can't articulate yourself well in terms of why invest in real estate. And it's very important to be able to do that. So having that financial background, having development, having property management, having asset management, portfolio strategies, all of these things together, I think are learning experiences. And I would suggest that young people spend as much time as they can trying to broaden their experience base, because the broader the base you have, the more valuable you are and more attractive you are as a potential candidate in a future role. The other thing that I think people should be sensitive to or aware of is I think you should build your brand right from the beginning. Start thinking through where you want to be in 5 years. Start thinking through what other people think of you and how they perceive you. You know, I think if you can kind of establish yourself as someone that's, you know, in my case, for example, I worked very hard and people knew that. People told me I was pretty smart, and I was worried about that myself, but that's what I was told. I got very active in participating in the business and joining NAHOP and other groups to get some profile. My personal thing, I always dressed well, and that became part of my brand. So, you know, it's the idea of trying to position yourself, not like you're an actor, but rather this is who I am. I'm a well-rounded individual. So those are a couple of things I would suggest to entrance to the business.
Excellent. And you know, you and I have worked together, Bill, on a couple of senior hires. You know, how does that differ? You know, when you're hiring for a director of portfolio management or a VP of development or a VP of asset management, you know, how does that differ than a new grad hire?
Well, when you get to more senior roles, I mean, you're looking for people that can really assist you at a senior level in your organization. And work is a lot easier if you have a good team and you have qualified people. So you're looking for people that really have a broad range of experience that can help you, particularly in the kind of roles I've had, to help you in achieving objectives. I look for people that have a sense of self-awareness, that they understand themselves. Because if you don't understand yourself, it's hard to, be a contributor.
Yeah.
And I think I look for people that were willing to become part of a team, and there wasn't a huge amount of ego associated with it. Because I know in the real estate business, in my career, I've had plenty of exposure to people who either thought they were or wanted to establish they were the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah.
And that's tiresome. What you're looking for are people that are smart, bright, talented, articulate, and can work as part of a team to move it forward. So those are the kinds of things that I think influence my decision making in looking at senior roles.
Yeah, excellent, wonderful. Now, Phil, I recall that you're a dedicated runner. You and I talked about it, and I got into running 25 years ago, I think it was. How has running or fitness in general helped you in business?
Well, a couple of things. I was a dedicated runner. I can't run anymore, actually. Just as a bit of advice to you, Mandeep. I ran for 30 years and now have back issues, so I can't run anymore.
Okay.
But I've taken up other things. I'm now an avid spinner because I think it's same type of exercise, but less problematic on the back. But be that as it may, I think the important part about running to me was the fact that it was, number one, it was my time. And I'd get up at 5 a.m. and I'd be on the road at 5:30, and I try to run 5 miles every day. Yeah. And what I found was that was a great opportunity for me to kind of think through what the challenges of the day were, what potential problems there might be, how I could address issues. And I think that's a very valuable time to be reflective. And when you do something like that, you get to work and you're energized and you're ready to go and you're kind of all charged up.
Yeah.
And that was an important part to me. The other element was it helps you think clearly. It helps you kind of relax. It's a great stress reliever. Yeah. And the other thing is it gets you very tired.
Yeah.
And you can sleep well. And sleeping well is an important part of maintaining your physical health. Yeah. So those are some observations.
Yeah, excellent. Phil, you got to a very high level in your career within real estate, and at that level, work can become all-consuming, right? Like it's not 9 to 5. It could be late evening events, weekend stuff. Whatever else that you were involved in over your career. What else? Aside from fitness, what else was important to you outside of work that you would say gave you a bit more balance in your life?
I think it's an important thing to balance your life because you can't be one-dimensional. You can't be solely focused on your job. Yeah. We all have to work hard. I worked probably more hours than I should have when my family was young, but I tried to keep it balanced. And I think that element of balance is important to being a well-rounded individual. I think, you got your work persona, you have your family responsibilities, you may have faith issues or faith if you're so disposed to that. Yeah. There's participation in business associations, contribution to the industry, but then there's also contributions to the community, and being someone that's going and sharing. So we're all, we all have done very well for ourselves, generally speaking, and you should share that benefit with other people in your community. So I think the idea of developing that wide range of skills, I think, is important, and it shows that you're a well-rounded individual. And I think employers are looking for that when they look at people, that they're not just purely focused on career and ambition, but rather they're a valuable member of the community. And I think that's an important thing to do. I mean, I'm still involved post-retirement in a couple of not-for-profit organizations, and I can spend a little bit more time on them now. And I think that I feel good about making a contribution in that regard.
Yeah, excellent. Are you still involved in the real estate industry in any shape or form?
A couple of things. I stayed on a couple of the investment committees at Bentall Green Oak.
Okay.
related to the Sun Life general account on real estate and also on the high yield Canadian Property Fund that I was instrumental in setting up. And I went on the board of MCAN Mortgage Corporation, which is a MIC, management or mortgage investment corp. So that's very interesting. It's a public entity, and that gives you the dynamics of a public entity versus other types of organizations. So it keeps me busy, but not too busy. It's a good balance.
Yeah, excellent. Well, Phil, that's all the questions I had. I really do appreciate you doing this, and I'm sure it's going to add a lot of value to my audience as well. Thank you.
Okay, Mandeep. Well, thank you for the invitation, and I enjoyed chatting with you.
Have a great day.
And after all, stay safe out there.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you.